Hey guys, this is the MMA breakdown and we're doing predictions for UFC Fight Night Oklahoma City. I'm not wearing a shirt right now because it's really hot out here in the desert, but I promise to not have the camera go below my chest line. Not that that would be a problem, but just in case that makes any of you uncomfortable out there, we're just going to keep it above right there. But follow me on Twitter. My link is in the description at MMA Breakdown 0, and I'm going to have my videos up for the following two events after this one. Tough 25 finale and UFC 213. Those will be linked in the description, and I've been promising it for a long time, and I know I haven't delivered, but I really want to get my betting account set up on the site I think I've settled on is Bovada. Hopefully I can do that in time for OKC, but if not, definitely at least by UFC 213. But if I can get that up and running, I'll try to revisit these next three cards and let you guys know what picks I'll be making. So look out for that. It might not happen, but hopefully it will. All right, so at lightweight, Tony Martin versus Johnny Case. I like Johnny Case here. He did struggle with wrestling against Jake Matthews and did get submitted. Although I believe he might have sustained an injury in that fight, if I remember correctly. But yeah, that's a concerning thing, given that Martin is a pretty aggressive grappler and a power submission artist. And that loss to Jake Matthews definitely looks a lot worse now than it did back then, given Matthews' recent losses following that fight to Kevin Lee, and especially the Holbrook loss was pretty bad. But Johnny Case, a good wrestler himself. The first takedown attempt that Matthews attempted on him, Case actually reversed him, ended up on top and dropped some elbows. And the guy's just a far more dynamic striker than Martin. I think Martin's gonna have a pretty tough time marching him down and closing the distance like he did to Alex White, who was pretty much stationary, and Martin was able to just box his way inside to land the takedowns. I don't think he's gonna out-wrestle Case that easily. If he is able to get him down and possibly submit him, I think it would happen late when Case gasses, fades a little bit. But yeah, I'm taking Case here. I just think he has a pretty big striking advantage as far as power and dynamicism goes, and I think he'll have good enough takedown defense to really make Martin struggle to hit those takedowns. So I'm taking Johnny Case by decision. Light heavyweight, Josh Stansbury versus Jeremy Kimball. This is somewhat of a tough fight to call, I think. Stansbury, the tough, whatever season it was, contestant. Kimball, he has several TKO, KO wins on his resume pre-UFC, although he looked not impressive against Marcos Rogerio de Lima. He didn't really get anything done, and Rogerio de Lima didn't really do too much either until Kimball slipped and got stuck against the fence and TKO'd off of that. But definitely, the finishing sequence there was pretty bad for Kimball, given that it was by his own doing. But if this stays on the feet, I think Kimball might have the power advantage and just being the more reckless, aggressive fighter. He might be able to clip Stansbury, who really was outclassed on the feet against Devin Clark and who just seems to be at an athletic disadvantage on the feet. He also got KO'd by Khalil Roundtree on the show, although he held his own for a round in that fight and was able to get some shots in. But it's the wrestling where I think Stansbury is going to be able to win this fight. Kimball has a loss to Koncz on his resume from several years ago, and he just got outclassed, in the wrestling department and on the map by Koncz, which is just a really bad thing because Koncz himself is, someone who has infamously struggled with grapplers and he just creamed him on the ground, and I believe finished him in that fight. So Stansbury's a hard-nosed wrestler, and we saw that against Corey Hendricks. So I'm going to take him based on that, but it's a fight I would stay away from if I was betting. Not a really confident pick here, but Stansbury by decision. At featherweight, Jared Gordon versus Michelle Quinones. This matchup was booked a couple of events ago, and I picked Gordon back then, and obviously nothing's changed now. Not a whole lot of footage for either of these fighters to go off of, but from the minimal footage that I was able to watch, I saw that Gordon has somewhat of a wrestling game, and Quinones is a striker, an athletic striker, but not overwhelmingly dominant or dangerous, at least from what I saw. So in that matchup, just given that little footage I was able to watch, I'm going to go with the wrestler. So Gordon by decision, but if I hear some convincing analysis going the other way, this is a pick I might change. All right, a lightweight, Devin Powell versus Daryl Horcher. Horcher, I thought he got more done against Nurmagomedov than he actually did when I went to revisit that fight. He really didn't do much on the feet, but I still thought just the way he handled himself, counted for something. Stepping in on short notice against maybe the best wrestler in the sport, one of the most elite fighters, and didn't look flustered on the feet. I mean, didn't look hesitant. His head seemed to be in the right place, and just seemed to remain composed, and didn't really back down to Nurmagomedov on the feet. Once the fight did hit the ground, he got destroyed, but I think the way he handled himself against such an elite fighter counts for something here, and that's why I'm going to take him. I wasn't able to find much footage of him pre-UFC. I think his most recent fight before the UFC got a rear naked choke win. Devin Powell is a scrappy brawler, kind of lanky and also awkward for the division. Drakkar Klose, though, was able to just out-brawl him at will, just march forward the entire fight, and Powell tried to engage him in the clinch and dirty box him, but just couldn't deal with the volume and the pressure of Klose. And I think Horcher's more technical, more calculated than that, so I'm going to go with Horcher here. At women's strawweight, Carla Esparza versus Marina Moroz. This is a weird fight. I mean, on paper, Esparza should be a big favorite, but I have this kind of brooding sense that something might go awry here for Esparza, who just since she's been champion, since that loss to Jędrzejczyk, just doesn't seem like the same fighter. Still a capable wrestler, still a decent enough boxer. Even though I thought she won the Marcos fight, making it close enough that she ended up losing a split decision is not good. And Marcos, since that fight, lost to Courtney Casey in a pretty dominant way. So not a great thing for Esparza in hindsight. But Moroz just has not shown that she has any kind of complete MMA game. I mean, had that terrible fight against Danielle Taylor, and she had a massive height advantage in that fight, and still, I think, set a record for most strikes missed in a fight. And she's going to have a similar height advantage. I believe she's 5'7", as far as 5'1". But other than that Calderwood fight, just hasn't really proven much at all. So had the pretty crappy performance against Christina Stancu, where she got the win but just didn't show much. So Esparza should have the wrestling advantage. Moroz goes for some kind of wild low percentage subs, and I think they'll play into Esparza's wrestling. Esparza should be the better boxer, but I just have that feeling that Esparza is kind of fading, doesn't have the same confidence. Moroz, I think, is a confident fighter, even if she's not as skilled, and I don't know. I see Esparza maybe eating, kind of eating an errant shot or something that, she doesn't see coming and gets clipped and subbed, something like that. I don't know. This kind of reminds me of the Danny Castillo-Paul Felder fight several years ago where I picked Castillo, but I did say in that video that I thought, Felder might get a surprise win, just had the same kind of strange feeling that something would go wrong for Castillo. But I picked Castillo there, and I'm picking the fighter who should be the favorite here. So yeah, Esparza by decision, but with the caveat that I would not be surprised if something happens here for Moroz. All right, a lightweight Clay Guida versus Herrig Koch. I got to go with Herrig Koch, and this is going to be one of my two confident picks on the card. I just don't see Guida winning this at all. He's developed a good striking game over the last several years. At least it's effective. It's that in and out kind of really defensive, strategic approach that we saw in the Gray Maynard fight years ago. And he's working with Alpha Male. His striking, his technical striking has seemed to really come a long way. But he still got clipped. I think it was a flying knee by Brian Ortega in that third round when he was just cruising to a decision. So Guida's just that guy, I think, that is kind of too old to hang in there against the younger prospects. Isn't a dangerous striker, and was never really that talented of a wrestler. Just a guy who got by on aggression and his gas tank for a long time. And I don't know, his biggest win over the last 3 or 4 years is Robbie Peralta. I mean, that's nothing. Koch, he's had his share of bad losses, the Crookshank fight, the Lamas fight. He can get TKO'd. Guida's not going to TKO him, but Koch is a lot more calculated, more dynamic, will have a height and reach advantage in this fight, and I think a big power advantage. I really liked his rebound, his return fight against Shane Campbell. Dominated him on the ground once he got it there. And Guida can be dominated on the ground. We saw that against Bermuda. So I really like Koch here just on the feet. I think Koch can pick him off from a greater distance. And then on the ground, I think Koch should dominate. So I like Koch. I'm going to say by sub here. And that's, I said that's one of my most confident picks on the card. All right, on to the FS1 main card of featherweight. BJ Penn versus Dennis Siver. I'm going to take BJ Penn. I mean, looked terrible against Rodriguez and just had no business returning for that fight. I thought when he fought Rory McDonald back in 2012, that was a big mistake, him returning for that fight. I thought he was done at that point, and that fight went exactly how I thought, just Penn having no success and just getting completely dominated. But this is Dennis Siver. This is not Rory McDonald, Frankie Edgar, or Yair Rodriguez. This is a big step down. Even as talented as Siver was at one point in the past, he's not the same guy today. But as talented as he may have been, and as dangerous as he was with all of his unorthodox striking techniques, I just don't think Siver's that hard of a guy to outwork anymore. Charles Rosa almost beat him on short notice. Tatsuya Kawajiri was able to outbox him in a really low output, uneventful fight. And that was his last fight against Kawajiri. That was 2 years ago. They'll be over 2 years at this point. That was June of 2015. BJ Penn has fought, twice since then, I believe. Or no, once. But Penn, with his grappling and with his, I think he's still the better boxer than Siver. And he, don't forget, in the Rodriguez fight, he got in on Rodriguez's legs, was able to get him up against the fence briefly. And I think he can take Siver down and at least box his way into range. And Siver could land a spinning back kick or a hard punch. Penn doesn't have the chin anymore to take those kinds of shots, but I don't know. I haven't been impressed with Siver for a long time, and I think Penn with the wrestling and the boxing, has an approach here to beat Siver. So I'm going to go with Penn by decision. All right, at welterweight, Tim Means versus Alex Garcia. This fight really scares me. I'm taking Tim Means, and Tim Means, if it wasn't for his recent loss to Cowboy Oliveira, he would be one of my most confident picks on this card. But that loss was just so awful. We had never seen Means look that bad before in a fight. He never looked that out of shape. And it was a guy who, in their first matchup, he looked amazing against. It was maybe one of the best performances of his career, just totally dominating the guy on the feet, using that sneaky close range boxing that he has, and just dropping the guy all over the place. And it should have been an easy TKO win without the technicalities, but that rematch, just a totally different story, and Means looked out of shape, just a horrible, awful performance. I've got to think that was a one-off for Means. If it wasn't, Garcia, kind of a similar fighter to Oliveira. I don't think has the same abilities to the same degree, but he is a big, strong, physical fighter who's a strong wrestler and a powerful striker. But yeah, I've got to say the Tim Means we know is going to show up, and Garcia is a guy who has been KO'd before, even in the Mike Pyle fight. His last fight, he was getting outstruck early, and Means is just great at sneaking in those shots from close range, and Garcia is a guy who's been TKO'd before by Sean Strickland, and just never really seems to be able to put in a complete performance, and doesn't really have consistent offensive output throughout a fight. So I'm gonna say Tim Means by third round TKO, but it's a weird one, and I would stay far away from this one if I was betting. All right, at light heavyweight, Joachim Christensen versus Dominic Reyes. This is a tough fight, I think, to call. Dominic Reyes, watching his footage, really a rangy, powerful striker for the division. Doesn't look like your typical light heavyweight. Has several very early KOs by head kick. And just seems to be like I said, rangy, snappy, powerful kickboxer. Christensen, I think, is kind of an underrated fighter. Looks solid everywhere. Decent kickboxer. Good clinch boxing, and good on the ground as well too. He was having a lot of success and really outworking Luis Enrique de Silva in their fight, and weirdly somehow got submitted and hurt de Silva in that fight too. But Christensen looks like he can be overwhelmed early in fights. Antigulov was able to just tie him up right out of the gate and submit him. And yeah, that Enrique de Silva fight, it was Christensen who got off to the fast start, and Silva eventually submitted him, and then had that fight with, I think, Bojan Mihajlovic, where he was able to get the TKO. I don't know in this fight. I don't know about the level of competition that Reyes has faced, and I feel like Christensen is a more polished fighter, and having faced the guys he's faced in the UFC, it might be enough. I think I'm going to take Christensen, just because to me it looks like Reyes has kind of been crushing cans and haven't really seen a complete game out of him. Wouldn't surprise me if he came out and starched Christensen with a head kick and just beat him to the punch, but Christensen has a pretty methodical kickboxing game, good work rate and output, and on the ground he's pretty solid. So I just think the experience, more of a veteran fighter, and Reyes still a very green but very talented and dangerous fighter. So really a clash of styles and clash of where these guys are in their careers. But I think I'm going to take Christensen, but I didn't find a lot of footage on Reyes, so I'm definitely going to be listening to some others' analysis, and this is one that I could definitely see myself changing down the road, I guess, later this week. But for now, I'm going to go with Christensen. All right, a women's strawweight, Felice Herrig versus Justine Kish. I think this is just a fight for Herrig to get another sub and look good, so they can continue to market her and push her. Justine Kish, I don't think is a talented fighter really much at all. She had the win over, I think it was over Nina Ansaroff, and it was a pretty sloppy fight, and so was the fight against Ashley Yoder. And Yoder, I thought, got Kish in some bad positions on the ground, won some scrambles in that fight. I don't know. I've seen two fights of Kish's now, and I still can't really describe her game. She just seems like she's just trying things and just trying to push her way through fights, just kind of looking for things. And Herrig looked good against Curran. I mean, a really winnable fight. Curran had really struggled with people who were able to impose their physicality on her before that point, but I still thought it was a good win for Herrig, and if nothing else, she's a really talented scrambler and submission finisher. And Kish likes to roll around on the ground, and we saw that in the Yoder fight. And if Yoder was able to get her in some tricky spots, I think Herrig will finish her there. So Herrig by submission, and this is going to be one of my two most confident picks on the card. All right, a middleweight, Tim Boetsch versus Johnny Hendricks. I love this fight, and I'm taking Tim Boetsch. Old Johnny Hendricks, he would destroy Tim Boetsch. He would outclass him kickboxing. I can't really say that because of the weight class change. But if this was the old Hendricks going up to middleweight to fight Tim Boetsch, I would take Hendricks. But Johnny Hendricks, I'm not sold on him at middleweight at all. I don't think he can compete there. Beating Hector Lombard proves nothing. I mean, he spent most of his UFC career at welterweight, and Hendricks still looked really uncomfortable and flustered against him on the feet. I mean, his striking did look cleaner than it had against Gastelum or Neil Magny. He was able to land some decent jump knees, but just looked timid, and every time Lombard let his hands go and was able to touch Hendricks, he just looked uncomfortable and looked like he was in fear of getting KO'd. Didn't use his wrestling at all in that fight. And that was against Hector Lombard. Tim Boetsch is a former light heavyweight. I think there's going to be a big difference in power. I mean, Hendricks hasn't even KO'd anyone in, since the Martin Kampman fight back in 2013. So, Boetsch is going to have the power here. He's coming off of two TKO wins, the most recent one being a knockout, had those two wins before the loss to Jacare. And in that Jacare fight, a real middleweight who most people consider to be the number one contender, and who's this world-class grappler, Boetsch stuffed his initial takedown attempt, and still got submitted. But Hendricks, I think, is just going to be too small. He really struggled to impose his wrestling on Lawler in both fights. We didn't see it at all against Gastelum or Lombard. He did out-wrestle Magny, but I think Boetsch is going to be too big, and he's going to have too good takedown defense for Hendricks to take down. And then on the feet, Hendricks should be a more technical kickboxer with a wider array of strikes, but Boetsch, I think, is just going to find that chin. Boetsch is an underrated striker. Looked good against Natal, got him out of there easily. Took some man down and pounded him out. Hendricks is just not a middleweight, and I'm not sold that he's fixed all of his health issues, his making weight issues, and just even after the Lombard and Magny wins, I think still is kind of a broken guy. So Boetsch, always very confident. I will say the Ed Herman knockout loss was just horrible. I mean, to get knocked out by Ed Herman in 2016, I still don't understand how that happened. But Hendricks, his power is a thing of the past, and I think Boetsch is going to KO Hendricks. So Boetsch by KO. All right, the main event at lightweight, Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Lee. I love this fight, and I think this is a total pick'em fight. There's so many ways that both guys could win. Both guys have big strengths and weaknesses here, and I've been back and forth on this one in my head, but let me give my analysis and then I'll give my pick at the end. But I think that it's pretty clear that Lee should have a striking advantage in this fight. His boxing has been getting better. It's been improving fight to fight. If you look at the Efrain Escudero fight, he still looked pretty clunky and just had a tough time getting a beat on Escudero, and even got tagged in that fight. And since then has fought more dangerous fighters in Trinaldo and Mustafayev, and was able to hold his own on the feet. And Chiesa's just always been a super uncoordinated, really awkward striker. Although on occasion he's been able to make some stuff happen on the feet. He dropped Jorge Masvidal in their fight, and that's actually the only example I can come up with. So Kevin Lee, I think, should have a big striking advantage. But the flip side to that is that Lee's not a long-range striker, so he's going to be in the pocket, and that's going to give Chiesa the opportunity to grab onto this guy and get him down to the ground. So that's a disadvantage for Lee. Also, Lee, while I think he's a great pocket boxer, has not shown to have any kind of fight-ending power, and that's going to be a problem against Chiesa if Lee fades down the stretch, if he gasses, which we don't have any evidence of. I mean, his 3-round fights, he's looked just fine, in the 3rd round, and he's had the deeper gas tank than his opponents in those fights. But if he's not able to put Chiesa away early, and Chiesa, I think only Masvidal has finished him in the UFC. If Chiesa isn't put away and Lee punches himself out or just gasses in the 4th and 5th rounds, then Chiesa, I think, will eat him alive. Be able to drag him down and take his back and submit him. But another thing is that Chiesa also usually gets or in a couple of fights, has gotten his back taken early and almost choked out. It happened against Jim Miller. It also happened against Colton Smith. So, and Lee, like Chiesa, has a really good wrestling and back take game and a good rear naked choke. So I think there is a chance Lee might just overwhelm Chiesa with his athleticism, his speed early, box him up on the feet, hit a takedown, and submit him. Yeah, and I don't know if Lee's going to go that route. I think he's smart enough to keep it on the feet. But, who knows? Lee's a pretty confident fighter, and if he tries to beat Chiesa at his own game, it wouldn't surprise me. But in both of those fights, Chiesa fought out of those positions and then was able to subsequently take his opponents back and choke them out in the Miller and the Colton Smith fights. And the other thing is that Lee, he has that one loss against Leonardo Santos where, he was cocky, had his hands up in the air, and ended up getting KO'd. Chiesa, although I mentioned he dropped Jorge Masvidal, I don't think he'd be able to make something like that happen, at least not early. I think the only case where that would happen is late in the fight where Lee fades. But, that's something to consider. I think that was a one-off for Lee. In his rebound win against Escudero, I still thought he looked, he didn't totally have it together mentally, and also got clipped by Escudero, and it wasn't really a great performance for Lee. But since then has looked really good, and I don't know, I think that might have just been kind of a fluky one-off performance for Kevin Lee. But there is that to consider. So after all that, and I've been back and forth on this in my head, but we have never seen Lee gas late in a 3-round fight. Seems to be a great athlete. I think he's going to have the cardio down the stretch here. And I just think that the striking advantage, while he may not hurt Chiesa and put him away, I just think he's really going to box up Chiesa, win those early rounds big. And he's the better wrestler than Chiesa, too. Chiesa can drag guys down, can lunge himself at guys, latch onto them, and take them down. But Lee's the better wrestler, definitely. So I think that'll also aid him in his takedown defense if he really doesn't want to go to the ground with Chiesa. I think he, as long as he's not gassed, he can keep it on the feet. So Lee's got the big striking advantage. I'm going to count on him not gassing. And, I'm going to take Lee by decision. But, Chiesa's tough. And, he's kind of a career underdog. And Lee, having had some head case performances, Chiesa could pull this one out. So I would not bet on this one. Total pick'em fight, but I am going to take Lee, I think, by decision. All right, guys, those are my predictions for UFC Fight Night OKC. Thank you for watching. Check the description for links to my Twitter and to my videos for the next two events, the Tough 25 finale and UFC 213. Thank you, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey guys, sorry I forgot to give you my most confident picks. I'm only going to give you 2 for this card. I don't want to do the 5 most confident picks anymore if I'm not really confident about them, just to throw 5. So I'll give you 2, and then I'll just give you 3 more that if I was just forced to pick 5, I would just throw those in there to round it out. But really, my only 2 confident picks are Felice Herrig and Eric Koch, and then to give you 3 others, but again, not confident to begin with for any of these. I'd go Esparza, Boetsch, and then Johnny Case. A lot of these other fights are, a few of them are newcomers or guys who are just getting their feet wet in the UFC, so I'm never really confident about those matchups. But yeah, the Boetsch fight, it's just too crazy of a pick for me to even really say is one of my most confident picks, even though I sounded pretty confident. And then I mentioned, my worries about the Esparza fight. And then the Case fight, just because he got submitted by Matthews and Martin's a ground specialist, that gives me some pause. But so those would be my 2, Koch and Herrig, and then Esparza, Boetsch, and Case to give you my 5. Thanks, guys. See ya. Hey guys, the video's not over yet. I forgot about the Martin Vettori Vitor Miranda fight, which I love, and I'm taking Martin Vettori here, and I think it's a pretty easy fight for him. Vitor Miranda should have the technical striking advantage, but he's too low output, and the biggest thing working against him here is the ground game that Vettori should be able to pretty easily impose on him. Miranda struggled heavily with wrestlers in the UFC, even pretty untalented fighters like Jake Collier. He was able to get him down and work him over on the ground a bit before getting knocked out when it got back to the feet. Miranda started off his UFC career by getting easily out-wrestled by Antonio Carlos Jr. Over the course of 3 rounds and could not keep that fight on the feet. And then Chris Camozzi, anytime a guy who himself has infamously struggled with wrestlers is just able to leg trip you with ease all fight long, that doesn't inspire confidence at all. Camozzi was able to kick his leg out and put him on his butt most of that fight. So Vettori, a young, strong, hungry fighter, I think is going to just put the pace on Miranda. I think it's going to be way too physical and aggressive for him, get it to the ground, and from there we've seen Vettori have pretty strong ground and pound. Came fairly close to getting Antonio Carlos Jr. out of there in the second round. And although he did lose that fight, I think that was a good growing pains experience for him. And then we saw his submission abilities against, was it Alberto Uda, I believe. So I think he's going to get Miranda down. Miranda's going to be physically outmatched there. He's going to eat some big ground and pound, and I think Vettori's going to finish him off with a submission. And this is one of my most confident picks on the card, one of my truly confident picks. I would replace the Case over Martin pick, which was in my 5th slot. I would bump that one out of my 5 most confident picks, replace it with this one. But this isn't even, in that 5th slot. This is probably my 2nd most confident pick on the card, ahead of Herrig and Kish. I don't recall at the moment which fight I said was my most confident pick. This might even be my most confident, but it's definitely number 2 at least. So I really like Vettori here, and I think he's going to win by submission. Alright guys, that's it. Thank you. Check out my other videos. Bye.